Okay, welcome to 1FG Archives here on YouTube. This is Just Chatting Volume 11. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the Retro Gaming League, the one that I have been a part of for now 3 seasons. We just finished Season 8, moving into Season 9. So let's jump into this. Well, just before we get started, though, just to let everybody know that if in case you haven't watched the entire season of the Retro Gaming League, I am the Season 8 champion, so huge shout out, of course, to the team. I am actually part of that team. As we go into that, I am one of the judges for the league, which some might say it might be somewhat of an advantage, but it really isn't because you have to discuss things between the team and make it fair for everybody. The whole intention of the Retro Gaming League is to put a bunch of pages against each other and see how well you can do and all that stuff. So, season 6, when I first started, was a bunch of, it was an all arcade game season, which I thought was a lot of fun. And season 7 was a bunch of different mixed games and everything, where both times I actually made the quarterfinals in both my debut season and last season. Well, I should say 2 seasons ago now. And then finally, my breakout season was this past season, season 8, where I actually came and pulled through and won the whole thing. All 3 seasons, I've actually been that I have participated. I've been the top seed going into the playoffs, and I worked my butt off in season 6 to get that way. And then season 7, I kind of got ahead of. It was a little bit of a battle about halfway through the season, and then I kind of just got away from it. And then this entire last season, we changed the format of the point system, where it wasn't one versus one person every single week. It was more or less, it was everybody versus everybody, and the points were gained on, accordingly how well you did, including an extra point for run of the week, which I got several of those. So on top of getting the already bonus points for that, and then winning the first of every a bunch of weeks, put me way far ahead of everybody else, and to the point where I could have skipped the last couple weeks, and not did a run, and I still would have been in first place by a while. So at least by another like 10, 15 points. So I really it but this past season, really, regardless of the points and how many runs of the week you get and everything, it all comes down to those playoffs, and your competitors. And every season we do about 16 to 20 or so pages against each other who sign up for it. And I said next season we're actually going to be doing things a little bit differently. We're going to be going back to the one versus one format, as well as we're going to be actually, if you complete the game, you're going to get an additional point as well. So regardless if you win or lose, if you complete the game, you're still going to get an additional point. So it all depends on the game, though, too. There will be carryovers into the next season from season 8 that we didn't use for the duck race. Basically what that is, if you're unfamiliar with it, is that we have these little ducks that would go across the water, and each duck represents a game, and whichever one crosses the finish line first is the one that we're going to be playing the following week, type of thing. So we have a certain set in season 8. We had a certain, like, every odd week we had a specific game for that week, and then the ducks were in the every even one, so to speak. So all that said and done, we also have the champion from the previous season, which was Willie Will Greenslade Gaming. He could also swap any one game that he wanted to and push it to the playoffs. Well, this past season, we ended up he actually used his game swap on week 1, which was Thunder Force 3, and we pushed that to the playoffs. And well, lo and behold, I didn't know I was actually that good at the game. and I found out that I actually was a world record holder for the game. So I went ahead, made a recording, and I submitted it to speedrun.com. And sure enough, I took it over, and it wasn't even close. I mean, I completely just blew away the person who was in first place. So, and I still currently hold that world record. You can actually catch the video here if you scroll down through the lists and all that stuff. Um, so that was going to be moved to the playoffs. And then later on in the season, we found out that one of the games that we were going to play, which was Parappa the Rappa, was very inconsistent. A lot of people were having issues with the emulation. They were also having issues with a bunch of like the button pressing. It was just way too inconsistent, and we just decided, what the heck, we're just gonna just dump it, and let's. And then we decided, what the heck, we're gonna put Thunder Force 3 back into the main lineup and leave 3 brand new games from the Duck Races into the playoffs, just so we can get everything. We felt it was going to be fair for all that, and that's how it ended up working out. And a lot of people in the league were kind of upset. It's like, well, think of it this way: would you rather have me as the world record holder for the game be in the main draw, or would you have it be in the playoffs? Where you pretty much are going to be guaranteed that I'm going to be taking that game regardless. Now, even in the playoff format, which we also introduced a consolation bracket, so even if you didn't place in the top 8, you could be put into the consolation bracket for, like, I think it was the next 6 pages. In which case it was 1 versus 1, whichever one you were in the bracket. But in the main championship bracket, it was everybody versus everybody. So the top 4 advanced to the semis, then the top 2 advanced to the finals, and then there was the 2 finalists would compete against each other head to head, and the winner would take all, which in this case ended up being me. So I thought that was pretty cool. There's a lot to say about this. I mean, we had a couple people that bailed out, during mid-season, which is always sad because life, it happens, that kind of stuff. Like, for example, in the middle of this whole thing, I had a car accident, and I ended up having, to deal with that. So things like that can happen. Luckily for me, I was already in first place, and I didn't have to worry about too much. That actually worked out for me, gave me some time to recover. And the fact that it was also during Christmas time, which was during our 2-week break from the league before we went back into competition again. So I had some time to kind of clear my head, and get back into business, and that kind of thing. So anyway, so how are the games? One of the things I'm also wanted to talk about is, how are the games really just talked about? Well, the judges basically and the commish, we all collaborate on a list of games that we want to incorporate into the league, and we all we pick about 7. We would pick about a few, several of them rather, and then we would vote on them, which ones we really want to include. So obviously, going into the next season, we're going to be including ones from the previous season that weren't used, such as Sonic CD, Life Force, to name a couple. Those will be pushed into the next season. We don't know if we're going to be including all of them yet or whatever. I mean, that's something for down the line, type of thing. But we're not going to decide it right now, because literally the season just ended a couple weeks ago. So the new season doesn't start till fall season, about towards the end of September, middle to the end of September, and then goes all the way through February and March. So it's a long time, before that's going to happen. So we have a lot of time in between in order to kind of make new decisions, what we're going to do, how we're going to change things up, anything like that. If you are interested in joining something like this, if you'd like to join a competition, you know, just follow the page and you'll see the updates and stuff when the time gets closer to the signups and everything. It's just little things that you want to kind of, just look at like my past streams. You'll see the Retro Gaming League overlay that I used for my streams when I'm doing my actual official runs, and you can just read and say, or just watch them and see what kind of competition, what the rules are that we set for each game. and all that stuff. So that's basically what the league is in a nutshell. We play a random game every week that's picked by the judges and commish, and we make the rules for it to make it competitive. And the one thing that we try to stress about a lot of this is like no glitches, no cheats, no nothing like. There's nothing like that. And we try to keep it simple. We want to play the games as they are. We don't want to we're trying to keep the, like, when you plug in a game, that's what you're going to get. If a bug happens, whatever, so be it. We'll judge it accordingly. But generally, it's just like go through the game the way it was meant to be played, and that's it. If you run out of continues, anything like that, hey, then that's your run, type of thing. There were actually a couple games this season that were really tough in that aspect, and one of them was like Mortal Kombat 4. We left it at 3 continues, the absolute default settings for it. So in week 2, people were all ready. We're like, wow, this, and we got to the Goro fight. It was just unbelievably difficult. So, you know, if you lost all your continues, you had to restart the whole tower again, and with the same character that you were using before, because you can't change characters unless you actually beat the game with it. So, and there were several people, the pages, that couldn't even beat Goro on their first playthrough, so they were stuck using the same character every single time. And we set time limits on how long you can play each game for, and all that. So just little things like that, about details along, like what kind of rules we set, and it's always discussed. It's voted on. Hey, does anybody have a problem with this? What do you think about this? We always throw ideas at each other, and that kind of thing. So in all fairness, it's like, hey, I may know the rules and stuff like that before, or something like that. I may know about it like an hour or something like that before the commish actually went live on Facebook to give the results, like, of the past week, and then go through about the rules for the following week, that kind of thing. I don't, it's not, there's really no advantage for being a judge, for the league. It's all pretty much like spot on. You're not gonna really have much. You get like maybe one more hour of knowing the rules, but then again, it's like when you're done with your official run for the week, I'm not going to worry about much until I'm actually looking into next week at what we could possibly be playing. Now, the ones that are already the games that are actually already there, like set in stone, saying like which were the odd ones, say, hey, this is the games we are going to be playing during those, like week 1, week 3, week 5, that kind of thing. Yeah, you can kind of plan ahead for those and kind of get an idea of potentially what you're going to actually be, what the rules are going to be that for that week. But overall, it's just, play the game as it's supposed to. That's what we try to do. I was actually going to look through some of the games we were playing this week, or this season rather, and some of them were actually pretty fun. Some that I've never played before in the past. Like, obviously with Willy Will, he made his game swap week 1, which he swapped Thunder Force 3 for Metroid, the original one. So that was very interesting, I thought. But I'm always very familiar with Metroid. Mortal Kombat 4 was week 2. Crash Bash was week 3. That was not a fun game at all. Even though I got the second best run that week, it was not it's a party. It's meant to be like the Mario Party of Crash, Bandicoot, and it just the camera is what killed it for that game, and I just can't stress that enough. Donkey Kong Country 3 was the next one, and that one I had, you know, in all fairness, I did not like Donkey Kong Country 2, and the first one was an absolute masterpiece in my opinion. I know I could probably get some feedback on that one, but I absolutely fell in love with the Donkey Kong Country 3. I never did finish the game to this day, but I know in the future I'm definitely going to want to do that because I had an absolute blast playing that game compared to the second one. The second one I didn't care for that much, and this one for some reason I just wish they didn't use the baby as like one of the characters because he was annoying. But other than that, I thoroughly actually enjoyed that one. It's like though after the second one I just no Dixie was what I think was kind of lame as a Dixie's Conquest or whatever it was, and or Diddy's Conquest that brought in Dixie, and I just didn't do it for me. New Super Mario Brothers on the DS was up next, and that game itself was, you know, I've always wanted to play it, and now we're going to be playing it for the league. Ended up getting run of the week that week. Rockin' Retro, who was actually a really good competitor in throughout the season until he had to leave because of family concerns and issue and stuff. So you know I felt bad that that was one of the last weeks he played because it really brought out the best in me that week. And because up to that point, I hadn't even finished the game in an hour and a half, and then all that point, up to that point, and then I do my official run, and I just smoked everything. I just went right through it, and I thought that was pretty amazing, and it it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that one a lot, and I ended up beating my time by like I was like I think the fastest time I had to actually get through Bowser was like an hour 32, hour 31 minutes. And then I went and I beat it in like an hour 20 minutes and 30 seconds or something, which was like a minute and a half faster than what he had. Out of nowhere, I just came out of just the blue and just was like, wow, what the heck, just what, I just smoked everything. It was a pretty cool experience. And that's what the part of the reason why I like this competition so much, because there's so much talent in this in all this, whether it be a casual gamer, and stuff like that, or to someone who's a veteran who had playing some of these games, so then very familiar with them, which a lot of these old school games, I can just pick up just like this. And it makes it, I know a lot of people probably like, oh man, I don't want to play against 1FG and blah, 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 blah. That's fine. I'm still going to give my all. I'm still going to play. I'm still going to have fun, regardless of whatever the situation is. I'm in there to compete just like anybody else, but I'm also there to have fun, you know. Donkey Kong for the Game Boy. Now that one, I absolutely been wanting to play that sucker for years. Another one, and that one was so much fun. Probably one of the best Game Boy games I've ever played. Period. So, um, that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, the next one we had was Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest. Very familiar with that game. It was awesome to be able to play that for the league. So I was happy that that was part of it. But the next one that actually really got me was Rocket Knight Adventures. Now we put that on the beginner mode and everything, and I still had a lot of fun playing that game. Um, it was just that much fun, and I've heard of it, but I never actually played it myself. And I was like, huh, okay. And I didn't even get run of the week that week, and I could care less because I had so much fun playing that game. Actually, after I was done that week, I went back the next time I had my Genesis hooked up. I was playing that again. It made that kind of impact on me, and I had a lot of fun with it. So, um, and then the following week was Parappa the Rapper, which we swapped it for Thunder Force 3. So obviously don't need to say much for that one since I do hold the world record for it. So yeah. Next up was Spyro the Dragon, another series I've been wanting to play for a very long time. Finally get to play one for the league, and aside from the camera angles being bad in that game, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Having going exploring, getting stuff, finding eggs, beating bosses, just flying around, floating around and stuff. It was a lot of fun. And another week I did not get one of the week, but I absolutely enjoyed it. I got pretty far in the game in 90 minutes, and um, I definitely want to go back again and play that next time I have my PlayStation hooked up because I want to finish it. I actually have the trilogy for it, so it's actually pretty cool that I could be able to play the second and third one. Next up was Earthworm Jim. Love that game. Love that game very much. It's very difficult. I did get run of the week that week, but it was pretty close. I think there was one. There was one other. There was only one other person, Captain Tendo, that was actually able to. I think we were the only two that actually beat the game. So that week, I could be wrong. I can't remember every single week out of the league, but that was definitely a lot of fun. Enjoying to play. And the thing was, up until that point, I hadn't even played that game in probably a few years. So I hooked up my SNES, I plugged it in and played, and just get myself familiarized with it again. And it was just an absolute blast. I really had a good time with that one. Um, and let's see, next up was, so one of the things that we've been wanting to try to incorporate into the league was a Pokemon game, and we were thinking, well, progress is going to be really hard to judge, because how many are we going to do it based on how many Pokemon you've catched, how many are in your Pokedex, your progression through how many gym badges. We couldn't figure out the best way to do it. So one of the things that we talked about was, well, what about pinball? There was a couple pinball games that were Pokemon were related. That why not incorporate one of those into the league? And so we incorporated Ruby and Sapphire. And not pinball is not for everybody. In fact, the other finalists besides myself, Cake Style, was not really had a really rough time that week with the game. But overall, everybody it's the same thing with like the previous season. We did Metroid Prime pinball. A lot of people had fun with it. It's not something that you think about playing for a league or something like that. But when you have two choices between boards and you open it up to everybody, oh no, you don't. There's two boards. Oh no, you can only play this one. No, it was the same thing with Metroid Prime Pinball. You choose whichever board you want to play with. Just have fun with it. Get a high score. That's the whole point of it. If you beat it, cool. But you're not going to complete the Pokedex in an hour and 90 minutes. But hey, actually, I think it was only an hour that week. But anyway. Next up was Rainbow Islands on the Sega Master System. Another fun, easy game to pick up. I'm actually currently ranked second in the world for this game. I might go back and try to beat the world record. I don't know at this point. But that was a really fun game too. As I said, very easy to pick up. Try to get the special ending for it. My only problem was that the version that I had, with the PAL version, the European version of the game, had a bug in it that once you finish the 7th level boss, it would take you right back to the title screen. And every single time that I got to the 7th level, that's what happened. And there was even one playthrough that I was playing where I got all the gems, I got all the big gems, whatever, and I finished the 7th level boss, and it reset the game as soon as I clicked on once I was going through the ending. I pressed the A button to continue to the next storyline or something, and it took me right back to the title screen. I was mad because I wanted to keep going because there's actually there's 3 more extra levels after that, and I didn't get a chance to do them, so that was kind of upset. That was a little bit upsetting for me. Second to last for the main season was Mace: The Dark Age. I love that game very much. Not very many people really cared for it. We were trying to look for some odds and ends, kind of like fighting game for the season. So we said, what the heck? Let's include something different. And so Mace got put into the mix, and yeah, I ended up doing like 2-3 completions, I think it was. And it went really well for me that week, and I'm just very familiar with the game, so no surprise there. Mega Man X4 was the very last game we played for the season, the main season, and I have to say it was a great finale for the main season because a lot of people had fun with it. I didn't get run of the week, which didn't bother me at all. I was already in the playoffs regardless of however well I did. I actually in fact did my run very early that week because it didn't bother me how well I did or whatever it may be. I already knew that I was going to beat the game within the time limit. So I just went, you know what, let's just get it over with so I can get a little extra time, to relax before the playoffs, because at that point nobody knew what was going to be for the first game of the playoffs. It could have been anything. The Ducks, there was one of like 32 different games that were on the Duck list or the games list the Ducks were going to choose. So, which ended up being the first game of the series of the quarterfinals was actually TMNT 3 Radical Rescue on the Game Boy, and we ended up having to change the rules in the middle of the week really quick because no one had already done their run. and we already knew that kind of, but there was a little thing that we found out that is like, nope, we're gonna change this so that everybody, you have to go after everybody. Make it, as I said, make the game. You want to play the games for their entirety. Play the game as they're meant to be played. Go around, rescue everybody, that kind of stuff. So that was the thing that we had to incorporate, and there was a little bit of backlash over it, but overall, people were satisfied over the whole period of it. People had some fun with it, and it ended up being a really, really, really fun game. So I can't complain. It was pretty awesome overall, even though I was struggling like crazy to get through it. And then, hey, I was happy as long as I was um, within the top four, I was going to be good. And as soon as I did my run, I was already in second place. So regardless of however the last two people who were still left to do their runs, however the result was, I was going to be guaranteed into the semifinals. So that just broke my curse right there, and I just said, okay, two more games to go, and that should do it. Which in the semifinals ended up being Ninja Ryukiden 3, The Ancient Ship of Doom, or Ninja Gaiden 3 for the Nintendo Famicom. Now, there are two versions of this. There's the Nintendo Famicom and there's the NES version. So the Famicom version, the Japanese version, is a way different than the US version because number one, you take half the damage that you would than you did the US version. Number two, you have unlimited continues, which also, helped out a lot. And a password system even too. So, it was just a lot easier to get through this one than it was. But, I ended up pulling a no death run on this thing, and I blitzed through this whole thing. I was like in shock that my run went that well, just so smoothly, and I no way out after that. And Cake Style, who was it was myself, Cake Style, Captain Tendo, and Outcast Gaming, who are the semifinalists. And once Cake Style did his run, and he did his in about 17 minutes, and I said, okay, all I have to do is if I can beat that by just even a second or two, that's a guaranteed I will be in the finals, because Outcast had already done his run already at that point. And I said to myself, well, as long as if I can beat that time, I'm guaranteed into the finals, regardless of whatever Captain Tendo does. Because Cake ended up having to do his run a little bit earlier because he had to work the next day or something like that. So I just said, okay, well, as long as I know where... No, I'm sorry. That was for the final. My bad. So that's so I did my run, and I just blitzed through it. I beat it in less than 16 minutes. I was like 15:40 something ended up being my time. So I was guaranteed a spot in the finals, which I was absolutely ecstatic over. I couldn't believe I'm finally in the finals. And then the Ducks pull Road Rash on the Sega Master System for the final. A very, very lackluster game. That it well, there was tons of other choices on that on the game list where the Ducks could have chosen, but nope, we get stuck with Road Rash on the Sega Master System, which, you know what? It's okay. And that just meant that the races were going to be a lot the overall like determining factor was going to be, it was going to come down to a few seconds, and as long as you don't crash, it's going to come down to just those few seconds in between, between the two of us. Now we had consolation bracket as well as the actual championship between myself and Cake Style, who was who was my opponent in the finals, and he had a couple of wrecks in his run, and I luckily was able to get through mine unscathed. I bumped into a couple of the motorists, motorcyclists who I was racing with, but that didn't slow me down, rather, versus getting knocked off my bike and having to get up and get back on my bike, which he had to do a couple times. And that's what it all came down to. I mean, without even that factoring in and everything, I'm looking at like when I was looking at the actual times between us, It even if it wasn't for those wrecks, I technically had him beat 4 out of the 5 races that we had to do. So that was the other thing that the judges had decided for. They would kind of throw a wrench at us, and rather than do like, oh, get as many first places that you can, get this, get that. No, it's do we had an hour time limit, which none of us were going to get to that point. Um, but you just did the first level, all 5 races, and get the best time you can on, and you only get one shot at it basically, and that just kind of threw things off for a little bit for me because it's like I was not expecting that for the rules, and I was just like, because and me being a judge, considering that I strictly told them, I said I don't want to be involved when you guys are deciding the rules, when you guys are doing this. I'm not going to be in the chat. I'm not going to be anywhere. Just message me. Somebody send me a text message when you guys are done deciding the rules, and when all the graphics are done, and I'll find out all the rules when you go live, when the commission goes live to announce what the rules are, because it would only be fair to Cake, Cake Style and everything. So I was not a judge that for the finale. I was not any part of that rules anything. I was just a regular competitor that entire for the final, and just to be fair for everybody else, and it all worked out. It ended up working out for me as I said earlier. I did end up winning the final. I am the season 8 champion. And again, a huge shout out to the team, the commish, my Kyle, the Baker, all that, the whole and all the competitors too. Even those who were not able to stay with the league and everything. I'm hoping they'll be coming back next season. And even in a preview show for season 9, we're going to be introducing we have another judge that's going to be joining us. We're going to be introducing, hopefully, potentially, the ladies league. So we're going to have like one team of male, and there's going to be a male and a female side for the league. Because pretty much, I mean, we're hoping to get some ladies into this, because it's pretty much been all testosterone. I mean, for me personally, I don't mind that, but I have nothing against anything. I'm here to compete regardless of whoever my opponent is. So male, female, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. If you're here to compete, you're here to compete. Let's have some fun, type of thing. Um, and then yeah, timers are going to be required now because we weren't requiring them before. Now we're just going to say, you know what, you've got to have a timer on your actual stream, otherwise we're not going to count it. You've been warned. We're going to be introducing some new consoles this season, including the Sega Saturn. That's going to be introduced, the GameCube, Dreamcast, potentially. And a few others as well. And one game that we did reveal that we will be using in the competition is Metroid Prime, the first one on the Nintendo GameCube. So, little things like that, just little things we made a decision about already moving into season 9, and we're not even doing anything yet, because we still have like the Summer League, which is like a short, like 6 to 10 week competition where we pick one game where we want, like last season it was Castlevania Symphony of the Night. We had to get the whole full castle map completed. That was a 200 plus whatever percentage. You know, that's what you had to do to beat it in order to actually win the actual competition. So, and I think it ended up going for like about 11 weeks. It took about 11 hours for everybody to get all the parts of the map and everything covered. So it was fun to watch. I didn't compete in it personally. Um, I wanted the season to relax, because after losing in the quarterfinals in season 7, I was kind of out of it. I was just kind of like, yeah. We don't even know what the summer league game is going to be for this time. It might be Conker's Bad Fur Day, which obviously I'm not going to be very, I'm going to say no. I'm not going to do that one at all. Have no interest in that game whatsoever. But anyway, so just something to look forward to, as I go into season 9. And the one thing I have to say is that I'm glad I joined it. I had a lot of fun these past 3 seasons, not just part of being a judge or anything like that, but the team, the games that we play, these classic games, all these retro games and stuff like that. Um, and for those of you who always know that I always like to play off original hardware, so I know that if a game is coming up where I'm going to be wanting to play it on original hardware, because it's always either play it on original hardware or you have to emulate it somehow. And so it's if you don't have a powerful enough computer, especially with something like GameCube or even PlayStation 1, we can notice like there has been folks in the past, like especially the arcade season, where the emulation just absolute did not work for their computer and stuff like that. So that's why we wanted to kind of give a heads up for those in moving into season 9, saying, hey, these consoles are coming, so if you're gonna have to figure out, start figuring out. You have about 6 months to figure it out. If you want to compete in next season, you're gonna have to be able to play these games off these more somewhat modern consoles versus NES, Genesis, Super Nintendo, Atari, whatever it may be from the total old school 80s and 90s. We're moving into like the 2000s and stuff like that. That'll, you know, you have to be able to emulate these things. If not, or like me, where I already have my copy of Metroid Prime, I have a GameCube, that kind of stuff. So I'm not worried about having well. So if I notice that a game is going to be played, I mean, I have my RetroPie too. If I absolutely need it, if I need to emulate something, that's fine. I can just I have my RetroPie. Um, but most of the time, I will actually go and see if I can find a physical copy at a local retro store, and see if they actually have it. And then I'll just go and I'll purchase it, and I'll play it, especially if it's a game that I'm interested in. I'd like to keep the retro games alive, as very much as I love the whole concept of it. It's I enjoy it so much that I really it really just lets me be a kid again. And I'm in my going into my mid 40s this year, starting to be in my mid 40s this year. I'm still liking these things just like the day I picked them up and played them. I really just enjoy this competition that much because of that reason. And it also allows you to kind of show off your gaming skills a little bit. I know I kind of, I did absolutely really well this season. So for me to walk away with the championship, is amazing. And I think it's really cool that I get to be a part of something like this. There's no money involved. This is one thing I want to get across though, is yeah, there's no money involved. It's all just more or less just bragging rights and having a bunch of fun, little banter here and there, among the competitors on the Discord server and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. It really truly is. And if you really are, if you're watching this and you're interested in actually joining it for next season or even the summer league or something like that, check us out. Watch for updates, message the page. We'll get in touch with you. That kind of thing. I am actually going to be putting a link to the actual page for the YouTube page in my description once I'm done here and once this is uploaded. So do please check them out. And yeah, so I just wanted to take this little opportunity. I wanted to take some time to talk about this thing, my experience through the season 8, and kind of go over what it's like to be a competitor for the season, what it's like to be a little bit of a judge, a little bit of information about being a judge, and just the overall funness, of playing these retro games and bringing them back to life after they sit there for on the shelf and everything else. Because I'll be honest, there's tons of games that are on my shelf that I don't even get to play, that I haven't even played yet. And I'm one of these days I do, and which is why I've incorporated like first impressions, just chatting, different aspects of the series, of different series that I'm thinking of doing, or maybe incorporating new ones, and all that. And the Retro League kind of adds to all that, because not only am I having to compete and complete games, that I've never played before, or games, as I said, like Mario DS, Donkey Kong on the Game Boy, games that I've been wanting to play, and now all of a sudden, hey, now I have to play them. That's what I'm talking about. You get to have some fun with these old school games and figure out like, oh, they're just do it. This is how this works. This is how that works. Learning the patterns of the games and stuff like that. That's what it's all about. That's how you have fun. And as I said, being a middle, now I guess you could say middle-aged man myself, it lets me be a kid again. Finding out these things, having some fun, especially with those other pages that are in the competition. Let's have fun together. That's what this league is about to me. It brings people with the love of video games and retro games, and it just brings it all back to the light, to life, just to enjoy it. So that's why I do it. That's why I try to incorporate, try to get other people involved, and that kind of stuff. Just check it out, have some fun. Enjoy the different competition, the rages, the fantastic moments, like you beat the game, it was so hard, and all that, and you complete it for the first time right on your stream. You get a personal best record on stream. That's the kind of stuff that it's all about. And your other competitors and stuff will be there for you to cheer you on and all that. That's what just building the community. That's what it's all about. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little banter, but not banter, but talk about the Retro Gaming League on. It's also on Facebook, YouTube, and all that stuff. If you want to check out the commish, he is Classic and Current Gaming over on Twitch as well as YouTube. So please do. I'm also going to put a link to his YouTube page and the link in the description too. So please do check him out as well. RxDude92, I think, is his screen name. But you can also check me out over at facebook.com/OneForsakenGaming, twitch.tv/OneForsakenGaming, and of course, always right here on YouTube at 1FG Archives. That's going to wrap up this episode. Again, I hope you've enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.